Hello, my beautiful friends. Welcome to Breaking the Silence. I'm Renee, and I am so happy that you are here with me today. It's a little bit different day. I don't have Kelly with me, so it's definitely going to feel a little bit different. But I hope um, that you cozy in with me, grab a cup of coffee or whatever, and it's just sort of like old times of just us chatting and like you're sitting here at my table with me. So, last week we talked about why avoidance can seem to sort of go cold after being deeply loving. We talked about deactivation and we talked about nervous system overwhelm. We also talked about how sometimes the relationship really didn't change. The nervous system needed distance to feel safe once again. And with that, today I want to take the conversation one step further because I think a lot of times, I don't want to say one of the biggest questions because I'm actually going to list off a few questions, but these are probably, they're right up there at the top of the list of some of the biggest questions people ask after an avoidant relationship. And that is, why didn't they just tell me? Why didn't they communicate? Why didn't they tell me they were struggling? Why didn't they tell me something fell off? Why didn't they give us a chance to work through it? And honestly, I think this is one of the hardest parts of an avoidant attachment to make peace with, or I'm sorry, an avoidant relationship, someone that's been in the relationship, for them to make peace with it. Because most people can handle difficult conversations, right? What hurts is never getting the opportunity to have one. And with that, what also hurts is feeling blindsided. Maybe you never seen it coming. It's realizing there were fears, frustrations, doubts, or concerns happening inside your partner that you never knew existed. And after the relationship ends, you find yourself replaying everything, looking for clues, looking for answers, trying to figure out what you missed, trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. And if you've ever been there, I just want you to know that you're not alone. So let's talk about what's often happening underneath the surface. One thing many people don't understand about avoidant attachment is that avoidants often struggle with communicating, especially their vulnerable emotions long before they struggle with leaving. So I want to make that very clear. They have been struggling with communicating those vulnerable emotions long before they struggle with leaving. They're already playing it all through in their heads. Because communication, that requires vulnerability. Communication requires risk. Communication requires saying things like, I'm scared. My feelings are hurt. I'm struggling. I'm feeling disconnected. I need something. And for someone whose nervous system learned that vulnerability wasn't safe, those conversations can feel incredibly uncomfortable. So instead of addressing the issue, they often avoid the issue. And avoidance creates temporary relief. If talking feels uncomfortable, silence feels easier. If conflict feels scary, avoiding conflict feels safer. If vulnerability feels overwhelming, keeping everything inside feels less risky, at least in the moment. But what gets avoided doesn't disappear. It grows. And that's where so much heartbreak happens, because often the other person doesn't even know there's a problem. One of the biggest misconceptions people have is believing avoidants always communicate their needs and then leave because those needs were never met. Sometimes it happens, but many times the concerns stay internal. The fears stay internal. The resentment stays internal. The doubt stays internal. And eventually, those unspoken feelings build enough pressure that leaving feels easier than communicating. And from the outside, that is incredibly confusing, because you're thinking, if you would have told me, we could have talked about it. If you would have told me, we could have worked on it. If you would have told me, maybe we could have found a solution. And that's the heartbreaking part. Because many relationships don't end because there were no solutions. They end because the conversation never happened. It honestly could have been a very simple solution. Maybe not even a very big problem. But the conversation never happened, and that's why the relationship ended. I do want to be clear about something, though. Not every relationship should be saved. Not every breakup is an avoidant. And not every relationship can be repaired through communication. Sometimes relationships genuinely need to end. But today we're talking about situations where communication never had a chance. So why does leaving often feel easier than talking? For one reason, talking requires uncertainty, right? Talking requires vulnerability. It requires staying emotionally present. And leaving often creates immediate relief. Typically, a dismissive avoidant or a fearful avoidant leaning into their avoidance, when they leave, they feel relief. The pressure goes away. The discomfort goes away. The anxiety goes away, at least temporarily. And many people mistake relief for certainty. But relief and clarity aren't always the same thing. Just because something feels better in the moment doesn't automatically mean it was the healthiest choice. Sometimes it simply means the nervous system, if I can spit that out, stopped feeling activated. And that's why so many people are left confused when someone who seemed invested suddenly says, I lost feelings. I need space. I don't think this is right. I don't think we're right together. I don't know how to do this. I'm not the one for you. Like all the things, right? Because often there was an entire internal struggle going on within them that was happening that nobody knew about. Sometimes, not even the avoidant themselves. Many avoidants are disconnected from their own emotional experience. So instead of recognizing, I'm scared, they experience something feels off. Instead of recognizing, I'm overwhelmed, they experience, maybe we're just not compatible. Instead of recognizing, I'm afraid of depending on someone, they experience, I don't think I love them, or I think I've lost feelings for them. And that explains why the explanations can feel so confusing. They're often describing the experience without understanding the root of the experience. And this is where healing becomes so important. One of the biggest differences between an unhealed avoidant and a healing avoidant is communication. A healing avoidant starts having conversations they used to avoid. They start expressing their needs. They start acknowledging their fears. And they start staying present when discomfort shows up. They stop assuming distance is the answer to every uncomfortable feeling. Because communication isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing honesty despite the fear. And healthy relationships are not built through mind reading. They're built through communication. They're built through being emotionally honest. They're built through two people being willing to stay in difficult conversations. And if you're listening today and someone left you without communicating, I want you to hear this. Their inability to communicate is not proof that you weren't worth communicating with. You deserved honesty. You deserved communication. You deserve the opportunity to have real conversations. And if that didn't happen, the grief you're carrying makes sense. Because losing someone is painful. But losing someone without understanding why can, I think, definitely be even harder sometimes. So maybe the question isn't, why wasn't I enough for them to stay? Maybe the question is, why am I measuring my worth by somebody's ability to communicate what they couldn't communicate with themselves? And if nobody has told you this lately, let me tell you now, you deserve relationships where concerns are discussed instead of stored, where fears are communicated instead of hidden, where hard conversations happen before someone walks away. Because healthy love isn't built on mind reading. It's built on honesty. If you need additional support, I offer 10 minutes to feel held. I'll put the link in the show notes. You're more than welcome to, it's free for you, just something to support you. And otherwise, I thank you so much for being here with me today. I can't wait to continue this conversation next week. And just know that you are worthy of communication and worthy of healthy love and something that is built on honesty. So I thank you so much for spending time with me today. And if this episode resonated with you, share it with someone who might need it, please. Subscribe so that you don't miss an episode. And as always, we send you off with so much love.